Deep in the forests of northern America and Canada, in the middle of a cold winter night, you may hear a scream. That scream can tear your heart apart. You may think it's from a wolf or even a cougar, but it's not. It's a terrifying creature that has supernatural powers and have the ability to cut human in half or even just eat him alive. Even the indigenous people living there fear to mention its name. So what is this creature, and what is its curse? An old story goes that back in 1878, a Native American who was expelled from the Cree tribe had to take refuge in the forest with his family. And sometime later, this man arrived in a nearby city, emaciated and desperate. His family had apparently died of starvation, but the town's inhabitants did not believe him and called in the authorities to clarify the case. And finally, the man had to lead the police to the cabin where he had been living with his family. There they found a macabre spectacle. The remains of his wife and children were scattered on the ground. The bodies had been partially eaten. The father of the family was condemned to death by hanging, and before he died, he defended himself by claiming that the Wendigo possessed him, forcing him to kill his family. Wendigo is a part of the belief system of Algonquin mythology. It is, in fact, one of the oldest manifestations of a taboo peculiar to most human societies, and which was already widespread among Anglophone tribes. Cannibalism. It was forbidden to resort to this practice, even out of desperation. This dishonorable act, eating human flesh, was a way of invoking the Wendigo and having its spirit possess you. Thus anyone who practices cannibalism, even out of extreme necessity, ran the risk of mutating into one of these terrifying creatures. During the harsh winters of North America, a season of famine and extreme need was common. And to avoid resorting to cannibalism, the tribes told the story of the Wendigo as a warning. He think that suicide, or even starvation, was much better seen than having to resort to the atrocity of eating the flesh of one of his relatives. The Wendigo is therefore a resource for establishing a system of values and coexistence among the population of Algonquins. This creature never gets satiated, and its size increases in proportion to what it eats. It is therefore emaciated in appearance and is always on the lookout for more victims. He is the symbol of the desperation of hunger, cruelty, and overkill caused by starvation. No one has ever seen a Wendigo. They say only its victims know what it looks like, but the myth describes it as a tall, bony, humanoid-looking creature. It has long limbs, thin, elongated claw-like fingers, a terrifying face, and sharp teeth. It is the same height as a person, but its height grows in proportion to the size of the victims it devours. Its eyes seem to be out of their sockets, and retain some of the hair on their heads. In some versions, they also have elk horns. Their skin is hard as a shield, and only fire can make them retreat. The native people said that it attracts its victims through its voice, who in turn are lured and never return. The human footprints would fade away along the way, unable to follow in his footsteps, at which point the Wendigo would lift his hostage into the air to devour it. As for their abilities, they have supernatural strength. It's almost impossible to eliminate them because all the wounds and injuries that they may suffer heal terribly quickly, and they also have the ability to manipulate the weather around them. Their sharp nails and long fingers allow them to climb trees and walls. They are fast, but they have a strategic disadvantage. Their vision is based on movement, so, legend has it, if you stand completely still, it may ignore you. Nowadays, older people tell these stories to children to warn them not to enter the forests alone.